Hey, what's up everybody? Ed the Pond Professor here. I'm at home. I'm getting ready to head back over to the Frankfort project. We're getting ready to wrap up all the intake-based stuff and we're gonna try to transition that into the stream construction. So those two pieces are really kind of tightly woven together. This is gonna be a great video because we're gonna go over the overall description of what's happening with the stream as well as some of the details on how we actually build unique water features. Everything's coming along, looks incredible right now. Let me show you where we're at on this project. Well, we have intake bay. Remember the whole purpose of this thing, a custom made skimmer system. We have all of our aqua blocks in here. We have our pumps are in place. When the pumps are pumping water out of this little basin here, it's gonna draw the water down. Once we remove this earthen dam in between, the water from the pond is gonna wanna refill it. When that happens, it's going to create a suction. It's going to create a skimming effect on the surface. All the debris will get sucked into this little middle area. We have been working on this beautiful stonework. We don't want to just have this big rocky wall. We want to have a series of terraces and ledges coming in. That will allow us some strategic locations for plantings. So this is the point I've been waiting for. We are going to connect the pond to the intake bay today. So what we have, when they originally built this, they had some leftover chunks of concrete. We have to get that out because if you see the depth, the top of that concrete is only 6 inches underwater. We need that to be about 12 inches underwater. And then we're gonna start peeling away some of the soil in this area to make that connection. We've peeled the fabric back across this. Now we're slowly just gonna start carving this out. So the big concern, obviously, we have equalized water pressure. So that's the number one thing I wanna stress. You never wanna start digging this without having this full of water. So now we have equal pressure on both sides. In fact, we actually have higher water over here. So what that's gonna do is water pressure is gonna wanna push it. It's gonna wanna push it out instead of in. So I don't want all that mud going into the intake bay. Once that's done, we're gonna put the fabric back in place. We're gonna set boulders over here because this whole edge will be now exposed. We need to stabilize all of this soil. Then what we'll do is we'll come over the top of it with more river rock to blend it into the lake itself. I want this to kind of be drawing water almost from this half because of the discharge point of the stream. So we're trying to draw water in. I want to try to create some sort of a circulation pattern inside the pond. So it's working as planned. You can see the water pouring out of the intake coming this way, so it's not drawing all that mud inside. We're stabilizing the water level in between the two. Everything is looking good. All right, concrete is out. Excavation is deep enough. Actually, we overdug it a little bit. We put some geotextile down on top of the water, put some layers of crushed stone on top of that to sink the fabric down to the bottom. What we don't want to do is just throw in a bunch of crushed stone into that wet clay in the bottom. It'll just disappear. So it's going to lose its higher structural abilities. The top of our gravel needs to still be 12 to 16 inches below pond level because we have put in some decorative river rock on top. You can see what we have now. Exposed bank, that is not going to work, especially because we're going to have a flow of water coming into here. We want to protect those banks to keep the erosion down as well as to protect the water quality of the river system that's going to be installed inside of this entire space. All right, the entire area's been dug out. We have our fabric in place with crushed rock. Now we're putting in our other retaining stones that are really going to delineate the intake opening. So we want to make sure that we have about a 6.5, 7 foot wide gap of water flowing into the bay. But now I want to show you some of the stuff that we're doing for the stream and waterfalls, which is really what's going to tie this thing together and make this project pop. That's the intake bay that we've already seen some of that construction stuff happening the past weeks, all that beautiful stonework. Now what we're trying to do is tie everything into the stream system. So we've started doing our transition stone. We have this big planting bed in between. This area here is where we've actually connected the stream to the lake itself. So the idea with this is to try to increase circulation. Now this is not an ideal layout. We are going to increase overall circulation, but the proximity of the exit point of the stream and the suction point is a little bit too close, but there was no other options for this particular project. This is where everything is starting. We have the swimming pool area. We have this area up above, which they call the dance floor. This is where all the activity occurs. You can also see you have the bar and the entertainment areas. We're gonna be starting out over here. Some stacked slate irons, waterfalls falling down into a pool, and then it's gonna continue crashing down, making its way through that opening. Because there's a lot of other utilities here, we had to get the piping system in, going from the bottom to the top. So remember, this is going to be an elevated spot. So there's going to be a large stone wall actually coming up probably 4.5 feet over on this side. This will have to be strategically hidden. We want to create some drama, some sound, some interest from this huge living space. I mean, look at the size of this. What we also want to do is we want to take this to the next level. We're going to have fire coming out of the top of these things. This is going to create a really dramatic effect for all the guests here on the property. This is going to have a waterfall falling down into a small pool area, which is going to be adjacent to this big patio area. There's also going to be a large waterfall right over here in this section. So this is going to be a huge cascade falling down. It's going to fall into a pooling area. There's going to be a bridge, position that strategically inside the stream system. Water's going to flow over in this direction and then come back into view going down that beautiful little area over there, and then eventually connect back up with that stream bed down at the very, very bottom. Electric has to go down first. That's going to come up inside of our wall over here. So we want to make sure that that gets taken care of. The only other challenge we have is we have to make sure that those pipes are deep enough, because our waterfall and stream and pool and everything are going to go right over the top of that electric. So we started our retaining wall. This is gonna hold the upper pool. That's gonna hold the main waterfall that starts everything out. This is 5 feet tall right here. This is dropping down. We're gonna have another series of rocks behind those ones to get that elevation. You can see we've set top of these rocks here level with that floor of the patio over on the other side. Then all of this is gonna get filled in with soil all the way up into here, so we can get a waterfall facing the main viewing area. We have all of the electric has been moved. We got our piping coming in. Everything's going to be stubbed up behind all this. So our next steps are going to be continuing this wall, going around, and then another wall is going to have to go from this big splitting point this way to tie back over into all of that. So Kevin is doing some of the excavation, pulling out some of these pools. Let me show you what we've already done here. The point where the stream enters the lake. So we have all of that stonework in place. We did get a bunch of rain, so it washed a bunch of sand in here. That's all gonna be taken care of. We don't have any of the drain systems in here yet. This lower waterfall is really what I wanna start talking about. Done this beautiful stonework down below. Big tall waterfall over here. Over on that side, we're gonna have a lower section of falls. And what we're trying to do right now is configure how we want the next section to tie into this. So we have multiple things that we have to think about on this project. So we have the existing waterfall, obviously, that's been done. We have a staircase coming down, and then there's gonna be a huge patio. Right here in this narrow section, there's a big bridge going across, 8 feet wide. The reason the homeowner wants a wide bridge is because he has kids and grandkids, and he wants to be able to take four-wheelers, golf carts, that type of stuff over that bridge, so it has to be structural as well as wide and stable. It looks like a lot of room, but when you put in a big 8-foot bridge, you put in a patio, you have an existing waterfall, we're working with massive stone, all of a sudden that space really gets condensed very, very quickly. We are cutting all this out. We're gonna start putting a liner in this here today, setting these elevations in pools. So when I'm thinking about a waterfall, I'm looking at different viewing areas. I wanna see different elevations. So we have elevations to be met. That patio is gonna be right where that machine is at. Can't have a high pooling area, but I do wanna have a little bit of an elevation change. The bridge is gonna be right in here. Want to have a small waterfall coming in. Not going to be very big. Very subtle stuff, actually goes a long, long way. It's going to fit the property. There's going to be a second waterfall located right at the edge of that excavation. So we just finished the walkthrough on the Frankfort project, doing a couple sketches and things like that. I wanted to show you in a little bit more detail how we actually go through the excavation process all the way through to putting in all the different layers, as well as setting the stone and completing it with the foaming process. We have a nice gentle slope. So basically just something like that. We have a gentle slope that's going down the property. We're gonna start carving into this hillside with basically a flat excavation. And then we come up and we kind of do a 90-degree turn. So all this material is going to get removed. I'm then going to come on top of this excavation with multiple layers. I'm going to have a layer of heavy-duty fabric. I'm going to have a layer of the EPDM rubber liner. Another layer of the heavy-duty fabric. Now these are obviously, they're going to extend all the way underneath everything. And then on top of this, I'm going to come in and I'm going to start setting my large boulders. One of the problems that I see a lot of contractors doing is they're going to place the rock right next to the excavation. What I try to do is I over dig the area probably by 12 to 18 inches. So I'm going to dig this bigger than normal, and I'm going to place the rock where I think the rock actually looks good. But the reason I'm setting it out farther is because a lot of these excavations might be 3 feet or more. It's very hard to find a 3-foot boulder. So by over digging this, I've actually set this rock maybe 18 to 24 inches high. So now I have this unique stone sitting on top of my liner and my fabric. Now this joint behind it, what I'll do is I'll come in with some crushed stone. I'm going to fill this area with gravel. Now the reason I'm doing that is to solidify this. Now remember, this is our native soil back over on this side. So I need to support that. By having the crushed gravel in place, now I actually have a bedding material for the next stone I'm going to place on top. So now I can come in here with another piece of stone, and then when I finish my waterfall, I'm going to have water cascading over the top of this. Remember, this was my original hillside that we've removed. When our water is actually running over this, it's going to kind of crash down on top. Now these little joints right in here, back behind this rock, those are the joints that I'm going to be coming in with my foam sealant. So if I have my big rock, I'm going to have my bed of crushed stone behind everything. Then when I place my big rocks on top of this, there's usually a fairly big joint here. When we have water flowing over this, if it goes into that crushed stone, it will literally just drain underneath the rock. It's not going to be a waterfall. So one of the simple tricks that we do is we'll take either an extra piece of our heavy-duty fabric or a small piece of rubber liner. Water's not going to go through them. So then what I do is I foam right at the 2 edges where that rubber liner meets those rocks. It's going to create a 99% watertight seal. So now when that water falls over, it's going to pool up in here. It's going to crash and course its way over all of those stones. So again, I know this is a very simplistic version. We do this stuff on a daily basis, and I want you to understand how all the layers are happening. All right, so we got some of our big rocks in here for the waterfall. We cut the soil underneath the liner to make the rocks fit, and now what we're doing is we're foaming everything in place. We're coming in with our waterfall foam, and we're putting in a joint right behind the rock. There's a big pocket of gravel underneath this big boulder. In order to stop the waterfall flowing over this from disappearing behind all that gravel, the rubber liner is going to stop it, but there's still going to be this little joint right here. We're just going to take our foam gun, we peel this back a little bit, and then we're going to insert some of the waterfall foam. This waterfall foam will expand. So you can see I did a little bit right there. So we just distribute some of this right along this edge. There's no need to go underneath everything. I'm just gonna go right on that edge. And then when we put that back, that's gonna seal it in place. Once we're done, we'll come back and we'll trim off all the excess liner. So we got a couple bigger joints here, so the foam will be exposed, but we're gonna cover it all up with the river rock like we did down here. So when everything is done, you will never notice any of the foam joints. So I hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks for water feature construction. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you're looking more for so we can continue to provide that valuable content. We'll see you on the next project.